Hi again, it's Michael. So we're continuing with Kerbal. We're going to see what we can do now. So we've got out into the atmosphere and into space. We didn't get a full orbit due to the fact that we didn't have enough power. So what we're going to try now is making this a little bit more powerful when we're leaving the ground and getting us a bit more boost. So what we're going to need is some bigger boosters. So as I said, I weren't going to use them, but we have these boosters which give a bit more kick, or we have these ones which give a lot of kick. These are going to be oversized compared to what we've got so far, but we're going to give it a go, and we might have to attach some features onto it to keep it stable. Sometimes it's an issue getting these on here because they're a little bit big. There we go. So they're on. They come with a nose cone already, which makes life a little bit easier. They are a lot more heavy duty and they have a lot more punch compared to the ones we were using. So we also had an issue as our parachute wasn't working too well on re-entry. So we're going to put some structural supports in, give us a little bit more stability. This will allow us, it likes to do this. There we go. So let's put some more supports in because that didn't go too well. So these are just little light rods. They won't stop the boosters from detaching, but they'll just give it a little bit more stability instead of them wobbling as we go up, because with this sort of power they're going to want to push inwards and they then push together and snap, and obviously then you have a giant explosion. So parachute wasn't the best one, so it did foul a little bit, so we should try something a little bit larger. Let's try, we had another nose cone one, so this is the extra large parachute. That should help. But we're also going to stick 2 of these on here. Okay, it wants me to stick a few more on, so I'm just going to do that. So now we've got a bit more boost, we should be able to get into orbit. So instead of firing the main booster, we're just going to fire the boosters instead of the main engine, and then we can fire it up when we need to. Then they can detach. So we now want to separate this so it's going to detach, and then we'll come back down and see what happens this time. So let's launch. We're not going to put no struts on it, it doesn't need them. You're more needing that for when you're building a lot bigger rockets like fueling stations or something space apart, which you'll be putting onto your space station once you've got one up there, because you're going to have maybe 3 or 4 main rockets around it, and then you want your boosters. So the supports aren't needed for something of this size. You can do it, it gives you a bit more stability, but for what we're doing today we don't really need it. So we've got the same 3 in there again, because we're playing on sandbox. They won't ever die on the game unless you do something terrible and you don't bring back, but they do normally respawn after a period of time anyway, depending on what difficulty you're playing on. So we've now launched again. These rockets, as you can see, we haven't even fired our main engine and they are working a lot more efficiently and giving you more power. So this will give us the boost to get out of the atmosphere. We will have to fire up the main engine at some point to give us a little bit more of a kick to push us through, but at the moment we are working fine. It's a little bit more jerky, you can see, but in general we are stable. The struts are holding on nicely, and we're now going to push out of the low atmosphere. It's a little bit slower doing it this way, but what this allows you to do, it gives you more stability whilst going up. We're now getting to a bit more of the speed that we need to push through the atmosphere. We have got some overheating difficulties, which is always going to be the case, so we might want to, we should push through just in time. So I'm going to fire our main booster up to give us a little bit more of a kick so we don't overheat before we get out of the atmosphere. There we go, we've got some overheating. I think that may have just been the parachutes. Yeah, the parachutes have overheated, I believe. But we can now turn the main engine off and detach the boosters. So we are now in a stable, well, we're now in space, so now we need to get this into orbit. So everything looks alright, so we think we lost a couple of pods on this. Yeah, we seem to be okay. So we now push through, so now what we want to do is turn this on and push this out like this. So what we're going to do is now orbit this out. So as you can see, we are in a very wide orbit. So we need to push this down like this so we can slow the curve and also push out at the same time. You can do all the maneuvers on this page at the same time, so only issue is you don't see as much of details on how much fuel you got. So what we're going to do is just do this slowly now. Don't think we're going to be able to, due to the fact that we haven't got enough fuel. I thought the boosters alone would give us enough, but from what we can see we haven't. But we'll give it a go anyway, see how far we get. So we have got a bit further than last time. Let's just give it a bit of a kick so we use up the last bit of fuel. We might do it, but we've run out just before we did. So we might as well prep this for when we do re-enter, which shouldn't be too long now. So let's just skip this forward. So this time we have the plus of which I have more parachutes, so we should be able to re-enter the atmosphere a lot better than we did last time. So we are circling around. So we're going to come back down on Earth. Sometimes the ocean is a better place to come into because it gives you a little bit more of a soft impact. But we're going to be coming onto the ground. We are currently facing the wrong way, so I'm just going to adjust this. So we are going down in the right direction. So you always want to make sure your heat shield is taking the main impact of when you're coming through. So we're coming down again. Heat shield is doing its job nicely. We have got some overheating, which is normal. Mainly the overheating issues are the parachutes or the RCS boosters, which are still on the shuttle. Even though they're not in use now, they still overheat, as you can see. But we are in the atmosphere again. We're on the dark side this time, but not an issue. Still should mean we can come into land like anything else. So yeah, the planet is very much like an Earth planet. It's got your greenery, you've got your sea. You can do scientific scans of the sea, which does give you quite a big boost of science, because it gives you more usage for what you can use in space, so you can like get more labs, which also do experiment with water and other materials. You can also build a boat if you play around enough with the shuttle and the plane system. It allows you to do that. We'll deploy the parachutes. As you can see, we've got a lot more this time, which should mean we should slow down enough. But yeah, you can, with the space planes, they're a lot more difficult to build. If you don't do it right, you're never going to get off the ground. And if you don't have enough structural support, you're never going to actually be able to fly. So yeah, these have worked a lot better than last time. So we'll fast forward it till it comes down. The issue is, it's worked so well that we're going down really, really slowly now. Should only take a second and we'll be on the ground. This time we will end the flight and We can always give it another go on one more rocket. What we might do this time is see how fast we can get out of the atmosphere, and put some ridiculous boosters on it and show you what speed this game can go to. So this one worked a lot better. We'll revert and fly it to vehicle assembly due to the fact that we're only playing sandbox mode, so it makes no difference if we land. In Korea, you want to make sure all your flights land. Everything you do that is successful, you make sure you get it land and recover it, because the more you recover, more money you get back, and the more science you gain. So that one's done. Let's have a look. Let's find the best way of making this go as fast as we can. So let's use this one. So we want a lot of power, basically. So what we want to first of all do is probably go for an adapter to give us a bit more size than what we have, and put a bigger rocket on it. There we go. So now that gives us ability to put a bigger fuel pod on it, which means lets us to go a little bit further. So that's a little bit too big. Yeah, again a bit too big. I mean, you've got all different sizes, shapes, forms, whatever you need. There's, especially if you get the right mods, you can put so many different things on these ships. See, I've got all the way up to ridiculous size. So what might be easier is if we do a size chart on it, and see if we can find another adapter to go on this one so we can go even bigger. Maybe coming down to them, should be in a second. We'll find one which is about right. I think that one a little bit too big. Let's try that one. There we go. So this now should allow us to put something like that on. We want a bit more size rather than that. So we want to go down to the large area of, there we go. So it's a lot bigger. It's not going to be the most prettiest rocket in the world, but it's going to do what it needs to do. So we're now looking for a bigger engine. We've got a lot of choice on larger engines. So let's look at, say, that one. That one gives us quite a bit. Let's go for this one. So we've now got a larger engine on there, so now we want some large boosters. So we need a decoupler first of all, so we want one of the heavy duty ones, which is one of these. So we're going to stick, yeah, we'll stick 6 on here for it to give it enough speed as it's heavy. So we're now looking into the territory of huge boosters. So these are a lot bigger. They might not be able to go on them, so let's just get rid of these and just put the boosters on without them. We're not going to be bringing this back down. We're just going to launch it and see how far we can get. See the size difference of when you get to this level. These are huge. They give you so much more power. And we will put some nose cones on and we'll launch. Then we'll just keep going until it finally gives in and stops. So this one should allow us to, okay, so yeah, I forgot about the size of these. So you need some massive nose cones for these. Some of the cones are adjustable in size. Everything's adjustable if you look into the right part of these settings. So there we go. Let's see where we get. Let's put some such structural support on. As it's a little bit large, it might not come off as easy as we want it to. So these are big supports which you can use. These again are part of a mod. They are great for launching massive shuttles. So when you're talking about the hub of your space station with all different tubing coming off it, you can launch a whole centre part with different parts of the station in one go if you can get it out of the atmosphere without obviously blowing up, which you can do if you play around with it enough. So let's launch. So this one is going to take a bit more time to get off of the ground because of the pure size of it, but once we start breaking through the atmosphere, you're going to see it will pick up speeds a lot faster because you've got so much more thrust. You've got more thrust, but you've got more weight. You always have to remember that, because sometimes bigger isn't always better. In our case, bigger is better because we want to just keep going and going and going until we can't go any further. So these actually have more fuel than my actual main engine on here, and a main fuel tank, due to the fact there is so much bigger than what our main part of the ship is. So you see we already got out of the lower atmosphere into the higher atmosphere, and now we're going to break through the higher atmosphere and we are straight into space. It's so much quicker on launching these. Also, they're less parts, but they are a lot more money later on in the game. Each one of these parts are going to take you a lot of earnings to be able to launch something with this sort of power. You wouldn't need it for what you'd be doing in the main game. This is more for playing around with and seeing what you can do and how far you can push it. So we are already out of the Earth's atmosphere. We are now pushing at 2,000 meters per second. That's going to probably hit about 3,000 by the time this stops. Okay, so what we had was the boosters kept going and we ran out of fuel on the main one, which stopped us from keeping stability. So that's what all the shaking was, and that's why we've blown out. I'm not too sure how we've managed to blow out without blowing up ourselves, but you can see the booster's still going, and look at the speed it's still going at. It's gonna shoot into deep space and it'll be gone. So we actually didn't manage to get as far as I thought we was going to, due to that blowing up at the last minute. So yeah, we managed to get to quite a distance. We can give it one more go, and hopefully I can get it so it actually gets out. So let's go back to the launch, and we'll fire it with just boosters with a little half fuel on the main engine. Booster fuel and control, you have no control over them. They will fire and use up all their fuel. You can't slow them down, you can't speed them up. They will just keep going at a constant speed and pace until they stop going, and until they basically end, and then you detach them like you would if you had that on your shuttle. So now we're running it on a little bit less this time, so we're now only running the main engine on half, which will give us a little bit less speed, but it means when we do break into the atmosphere, we can then fire this engine up and use whatever we have left. And let's see if we can get into orbit of the sun. We can't do anything when we get there, but it's a lot easier to orbit the sun if you have the power than it is to most of the time orbit another planet. But we'll see how far we get. So we are travelling at a little bit slower pace, but you can see on this side that our liquid fuel for our main engine is going to last us longer than the boosters are going to last, which gives us a little bit of control and to stop what happened last time where we just fling off of the shuttle and the shuttle keeps going. So it's a bit slower, but we are breaking out again, so everything seems to be running a lot smoother. We're not going to shudder so much. So now we're breaking into the upper atmosphere, so once we're out of that, yet again we're going to see if it does get further without actually breaking up again. Should do on this one. Also, the issue thing is, when you're running just through boosters, you have no control. You can put RC S thrusters on the side of your ship, but you're still not going to have much control because the boosters will overpower, and they do not allow you to control how the boosters move. It's just there to get you up, and once that's done, they will come off like normal. You can make your own sort of booster idea by putting a engine with a gimbal on it and make your own booster attach. that's a good way of doing it. I've done that myself. That allowed me to get my fueling station up last time. So we're now going to fire up our main engine, and we're travelling a lot faster than last time. So we are actually shooting directly at the sun, which should mean we should be getting into the stable orbit if we keep going at this speed. So yeah, the main engine isn't that powerful compared to boosters, as you can see. We're not getting much more speed, but at least we didn't blow up and we didn't fling off of it this time. We have actually done this successfully. So now we are going to be, if I skip this forward a bit, we are now in the orbit of the sun. At this moment in time, it's not much use to us, but you can then see how slow the orbit is from when you get to this sort of height. It's a lot slower. You sometimes get caught up in gravitational pulls of other planets, which then can lead you to ending up being flung into that planet. Done it a few times with trying to land on the moon on the game. I've been flung off in all different directions because I forgot that it was going to be where it was. So if we now slow this down, we can have a little bit of a look at what it looks like in deep space. So there's the sun. We can't see the other planets, a little bit too far away. When you get closer, you can actually pick up where the other planets are, and you can see them. And when you're out on this level, if you build a big enough ship to do it, you actually have the ability of scanning the planet, looking at it, going down and sending a pod down to land on it. You can do spacewalks, and yeah, you can basically see what is going on these planets and take samples, send them back. So yeah, that's the end of this one. So we got a bit further out, we've had some fun, seen what we can do. Next time we'll load it up into the career one, and I'll show you what we've got on there, what different ships we have, and what I've done so far. So thank you for watching, bye bye.